Posttraumatic Stress Disorder, or PTSD, is commonly associated with veterans or people in the military who've experienced an incredibly stressful or traumatic event. The event often happens while they're in service, but has lasting effects even after returning home or even after leaving the military. Many people with an FASD or other developmental disabilities also experience PTSD, but for different reasons, though the impacts on the brain are the same. I have a personal experience with PTSD. Several years ago, I was driving down the road at night, going about 40 miles per hour, and a female pedestrian ran right in front of my car and was killed. This event, which happened in an instant, would have significant impacts on my mental health and my personality. Now, at the time, I worked in the field of developmental disabilities. I knew what PTSD was because many of my clients had it. But do you think that my intellectual understanding of what PTSD was stopped the symptoms of PTSD? You're probably thinking no, and you would be correct. You see, mental health issues, whether it's PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, ADHD, and many others, are physical brain issues. They impact our psychological health, but they are biological, physical in nature. Just like you can't tell a person with a toothache to get over it, you can't just think your way out of a mental health issue. Why would people with FASDs and other developmental disabilities be more likely to experience PTSD than the general population? Well, because they're more likely to experience trauma for a variety of reasons. PTSD can develop in children who are physically abused, emotionally abused, sexually abused, or who witness domestic violence. PTSD can be part of a larger issue with the person of early childhood trauma, and there's a lot of research currently going on in this area. Many of my clients with FASDs were adopted or are in foster care, and many of them experienced months or even years of ongoing trauma. Even after being removed from the situation, their brains act as if they're still in a stressful situation, even though they're safe. When the brain is stressed because it feels it's not safe, our more primitive limbic system of the brain starts to respond, as if a dangerous situation is unfolding in front of us. Anxiety increases, and the person may even go into fight or flight. Again, this happens even when the situation is safe. I describe PTSD as a combination of both anxiety and depression. Even on a good day, the person with PTSD feels both anxious and depressed. And then, on top of that, certain things can happen that create much more serious symptoms, which we frequently call PTSD episodes. I'll describe what a PTSD episode may look like in a moment. But first, let's talk about triggers, which are what lead to the episodes. Triggers are stressors that move a person closer toward having an anxiety attack or a full-on PTSD episode. And triggers can be anything and everything. Of course, stressors that have to do with how the person was traumatized are more often a problem. For me, driving cars was a trigger. Dark nights were triggers, and seeing any footage of a car accident was a trigger. Driving in the car and having a near miss that caused me to slam on my brakes was, of course, a trigger. However, triggers don't always have to do with the initial trauma. For example, Thursday nights were a trigger for me, even though my accident happened on a Friday. In fact, for about a year, almost like clockwork, I could plan my week around Thursday nights because I knew that I would be having an episode. This was actually kind of helpful. I didn't make any plans that would have to be canceled, and I could make sure that I had everything I needed to cope with the episode when it happened. But really, any stressor has the potential to be a trigger for a PTSD episode or anxiety attack. Loud noises are a universal trigger for people with PTSD. Think of a tire backfiring. Most people don't have an anxiety attack when that happens because their executive functioning system very quickly works out that the loud noise was just a tire, and it calms down the limbic system. People with PTSD, however, will take much longer to calm down from the exact same tire backfiring, even well after they figure out that it was just a tire and that everything is safe. They may take 10 minutes to calm down, or they may take an hour. If it's been a tough day, or if the PTSD symptoms are particularly active when that stressor happens, it may lead into a full PTSD episode. PTSD episodes differ from an anxiety or panic attack because they're connected to the trauma. They often start with flashbacks, when your field of view is literally taken up by whatever traumatized you. These can happen slowly or happen very quickly. They can be so quick and so powerful that it can cause the person to panic or display more significant behaviors. Some people with PTSD may not realize where they're at when an episode is happening. They may scan the environment looking for weapons or escape routes. They may resist anything that you say, be defiant or oppositional. They may start to become impulsive, engaging in silly or laughing behaviors. They may become violent, especially if they're being pushed to do something that their brain isn't allowing them to do right now. Children who've experienced abuse may engage in self-harm or say hateful things, and some will even engage in behaviors simulating whatever kind of abuse they experienced. When it comes to mental health issues, there are no easy fixes. Medication may be considered to help with the anxiety or depression symptoms, but there is no medication for trauma. PTSD is worked on through therapy and time. Unfortunately, therapy is often inaccessible to people with FASDs and other developmental disabilities. This is because while mental health professionals learn about developmental disabilities, they're often not given developmental disability-specific strategies to use when working with our population. This is why one of the trainings that Organ Behavior Consultation offers is geared especially toward therapists, psychologists, and medication managers to work more effectively with their developmentally disabled clients' cognitive skills set. If you can find a therapist who works well with your child or client, that's great. They can help them come up with coping strategies that can be used and provide other PTSD-specific supports. So what can we do to provide support in the everyday life of a person with both a developmental disability and PTSD? Like most of the situations that we've talked about on this channel, the best way you can work with a person who has PTSD is to do so proactively by making a plan with them. This way you can ask them what they want you to do when things are struggling and then follow that plan. Of course, this conversation needs to happen when they're in a good place and open to problem solving. Generally speaking, I suggest that talking to a person who's escalated is not a good idea, but in the case of PTSD, the person may actually want verbal reassurance. We can figure this out by asking them during this proactive conversation. You can even go over specific phrases that they want you to say and practice if you can. After making plans, we want to work to avoid known triggers and any situations that can cause stress. Of course, this isn't always possible, and that's okay. What's important is that we're thinking ahead, and if a stressor can't be avoided, talking about it with the person ahead of time to help them know what to expect and what to do. This is part of a concept described in our last two videos called painting the picture. We can't expect that the person will be able to process what's going on in a stressful situation unless they've understood the situation ahead of time. If there are certain times of day that tend to produce more PTSD symptoms, we want to try to change the environment and have coping activities available. For example, having calming music playing or essential oils burning during significant transitions can help the person to shortcut to their coping strategies and hopefully realize that the situation they're in is safe. Or if we know the person may start to have PTSD symptoms at the grocery store, well, we should avoid taking them into the grocery store, especially without a plan that we've made with them in place. The proactive strategy of knowing that I shouldn't do this with my child, but I'll cross my fingers and hope that it all works out, isn't usually effective. And when we do that, we may actually be hindering our child's progress on working through their mental health issues because we set them up to fail. Specific stressors that we'll want to avoid include unexpected changes to plans, using a confrontational or angry tone of voice, and engaging in power struggles. If stressors happen, we want to follow any plan that we have made with the person to help their brain understand what is going on. This may include simply saying, "Let's follow the plan," or "I'm here to help you," whatever you've agreed to. Once PTSD symptoms start, we must be careful that we, the parent or caregiver, are not taken by surprise. This is why having a plan is essential for both the person and for us. As soon as our brains realize that what we're seeing isn't an intentional misbehavior, but rather a mental health symptom that, oh hey, we have a plan for, our brains will actually keep calm and be less likely to respond in a way that will make things worse. If you follow the plan and it doesn't work, you're going to have to use your judgment and what works for the person to proceed. This is when having that mental health professional who's a good fit for the person you're working with can really help. They can develop a safety plan with you, which, of course, you can practice. The most important thing you can do in this moment is to help the person feel safe. You may say, "You're safe right now," and then be quiet to allow them time to process. Model the coping strategies you want them to be using. Take deep breaths and respond to what they say with, "Let me think about that," even if you already know the answer. This helps to slow down the pace of the interaction. Make sure you use a quiet volume and be as gentle as possible. If the person is displaying dangerous behaviors such as self-harm or aggression, follow whatever safety plans you have in place. Avoid yelling or looking irritated or distressed. Remove any peers, unneeded caregivers, or animals from the area. If the person is escalated toward a specific caregiver, swap out caregivers if possible. Much of the time, there's not much we can do for the person in this situation other than ensure their safety and allow them to slowly de-escalate. Have any healthy coping strategies ready to go, such as calming music queued up on an MP3 player or a sensory station set up for them that's ready to go once they're ready to use it. Not having these things ready to go can cause more stress in that moment of a PTSD episode. Of course, if they're being dangerous and you can't stop the behavior in a safe way, calling 911 or your local emergency service may be required. As for me, the majority of my PTSD symptoms have gone away, though I do experience daily anxiety symptoms. I had probably the best case scenario: a strong support group, access to medication, access to a therapist, and the intellectual ability to think about what was going on in my brain. Added with time, I've worked to a point where I don't have flashbacks or PTSD episodes anymore. People with developmental disabilities may need more time, more support, and more non-conventional supports to get to the same point, and that's okay. Remember, even though many of the behaviors during these intense situations may seem directed at you and personal, it's their brain being in a state of fight or flight. Don't take it personally and follow the plan. Thank you for watching our videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and like our page on Facebook. We're now also on Twitter at Organ Behavior. If you find our videos and podcasts helpful, please consider being a monthly patron of Organ Behavior Consultation by giving to us through patreon.com. You can support us starting at just $1 per month. Thanks for watching.